Yo, 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 and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is Toddy. How you doing, boy?
All good, all good. My first time on the Banter Boys podcast.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Very, very overdue. I don't know how we've not made this happen like seasons ago, but yeah, better late than never. How you doing, bud?
All good, all good. Refreshed during the break and ready to rock.
So, for those that aren't aware of who you are, and they must be living under a rock if they don't know who you are, would you mind giving us a little intro? Tell us your name, your Twitter handle, or Blue Sky, or whatever it is, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm Totti, which is short for Tottiandor, which is a nickname I've made myself. Uh, uh, Based on my first and last name in Hungarian. So I'm Hungarian. I live in Hungary, and I am a founding member of the Draft Society. Um, I'm sure that everyone who listens to the Banty Boys will know what the Draft Society is, but I won't do Joe's spiel. Uh,
I mean, you could go ahead and do a plug, like, if you want. You're more than welcome to, because technically I do work with you guys, right? So
exactly. So we are the prime draft fantasy football website. We have a podcast also, which you regularly attend, called
yeah,
Keepers
yeah.
Collective. And we have a website, we have stats, articles, everything that you need to dominate your league.
Hey,
Hey.
nice. I like that you added the final touch, that Joe actually says to dominate your league. Love that. Which club do you support as well?
So I support Liverpool and have done for all my football supporting life. Obviously, I have a local club here in Hungary as well. It's Kispest Honvéd. We are currently second to last in the second division in Hungary, which is pretty bad. Pretty bad. Our saving grace historically is that we are the only Hungarian club that Ferenc Puskás ever played for, and we are his hometown club. He was born and lived a few blocks away from where I am right now, and he is our sort of hero here. Obviously, some tough times recently, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but yeah, hopefully we climb the ladder soon enough.
So it's funny, before we ever got to chatting with each other, and like I always saw, you're a big name in the draft community, and you search up on X or Twitter, Totti or whatever. The fucked up thing was when I first came across your handle, I thought you were a Spurs fan, because it's like a Totti thing, right? But the thing is also, every time you type in TOTT, like Tottenham comes up in the search bar right next to your name, and I was like, up until we actually got to know each other, and then I found out you were a Liverpool fan, I was just like, who's this random Spurs guy that has a non-Spurs account? Like,
I literally never thought of the Spurs comparison, but in my home league, we have, I think, the most Spurs fans ever in a non-Spurs league. So we have in our 12-team league, we have, I think, three Spurs fans, which is an ungodly amount, and they
Jesus.
are the um, delusional type. So I was just at a football game with one of them, a good friend of mine, and he was already during the train ride down. He's already telling me that there's still tickets available for the Europa League final, which he's a bit anxious for because he has calculated that it's going to be Athletic Bilbao in Bilbao, so he's not very optimistic. And I needed to remind him that They still need to win like four more games to actually get to the final, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
I mean, there is a very messed up world or scenario where I think if everything plays out correctly, we could potentially have 10 to 11 English teams playing European football next season. And one of those scenarios is obviously Spurs, getting to their final, winning the final, but also not finishing in one of the regular table European spots or something like that. But yeah, it's like you said, you never know with Spurs, right? One day they could thrash Man City 4-0, and then the other day they could be the only team to have lost to Leicester in like the last 10 game weeks. So
And Ipswich.
yeah, yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that.
I was doing my pod research for the playoffs team and whatever, and it was so weird seeing Spurs on both of Leicester and Ipswich's win sheet. So yeah, it's strange times for Spurs, but that's probably enough Spurs talk.
Yeah, probably. So, how long have you been playing Fantrax and Togo for now? Would you say?
I want to say 7 or 8 years. I played Toga for I think 4 years before, or 3 or 4 years before we went over to Fantrax. So a while now, a while now.
Okay. And have you played, or have you like used the playoff route, or yeah, done playoffs every season in at least one league? Would
I
you say?
haven't done playoffs in at least one league. I've done like postseason type thing in almost all my seasons. Um, but like classic last three rounds playoffs, I think I've only done 3 or 4 times, 2 or 3 times, something like that.
But you've got playoffs this season, right? Surely, in at least one league.
Well, we have promotion playoffs in IGL, which are
Yeah,
kinda
true.
playoffs. I have I think that's it. That's it for this season. Like I have IGL, Community League, Home League, and I have a Dynasty League, and yeah, it's only IGL that has playoffs. I obviously the Community League has the Super League structure, which is non-playoffs, so it already we're already done with qualifying for that. So yeah, only IGL playoffs, which I still have a chance at. I think I'm I think fourth or something like that.
Okay, so yeah, you're fully focused on IGL playoffs then. Any chance you can avoid the playoffs by, well, I mean avoid by obviously finishing higher than fourth and not below it, right? But how far away are first and second place from you in that table?
So it's first and second that automatically qualify, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am the first. I think first is pretty far out ahead. I'll give you my standings. It's so I'm fifth. I'm fifth, but I'm 3 games off second. So it's
Okay.
I'm 5 games off first. So that's gone. But maybe second is reachable. But I'm 4 games off sixth. So I have a pretty good cushion looking
Okay.
backwards. So
Okay.
I'm planning for playoffs.
Okay. Well, I mean, for listeners that haven't kind of quite caught on as to what the hell we're doing this pod for. It's really a playoff preparation pod, right? And I probably should have done that introduction at the start, but come on, like, do you really expect any sort of organized format from us? But yeah, the reason also why we're kind of, I guess, to kind of timestamp this Sunday evening, UK European time, we kind of wanted to wait until the FA Cup games kind of played out. That way we kind of get the lay of the land in terms of the doubles in game week 32, the possible ones in 33, blanks in 34, maybe possible doubles in 36 as well. So there's a lot of good, I guess, advantages you can kind of gain while you're in a position like Toddy is in, trying to make sure that you have a nail spot for any sort of playoff league that you're a part of, which typically tend to take place in game weeks 36, 37, and 38. So I know like some leagues, like I know Ross, his home league, typically for double game weeks, they tend to avoid the second fiction, the double. But I'm assuming in IGL, they'd be considering doubles as normal, right? Like any other FPL website or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. We'll have official communication on that soon enough. I'm assuming, and if either of us paid attention to the information at the beginning of the season, we would obviously know this. But yeah, I think usually if it's not like well, maybe there is special rules. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I hopefully it looks like based on my research that there isn't gonna be a huge mix-up in 36, 37, and 38.
yeah,
Obviously, we know 38 is going to be all the fixtures starting at once, and it's not going to be a double or a
yeah,
blank.
yeah,
So it's for the playoffs perspective, it's either 36 or 37, and we know that 37 will be strange.
yeah,
If we just if we are okay to dive in straight in
yeah, yeah.
to the actual discussion. So
Let's go for it. Yeah, yeah,
37, Gaming 37 will be FA Cup final weekend.
yeah,
So there's definitely going to be teams that are not playing on the actual weekend. So we have our four semi-finalists: City, Villa, Forest, and Palace. So obviously two of those will be in the final. But there's a good chance that the rescheduled games might take place in still will be Gaming 37. So
yeah,
there's a decent chance that there's no mucking about with Gaming 36 and 37. The good thing is that there's no international or domestic fixtures planned for the midweek between 36 and 37. So
yeah,
if they don't go to post 37, then they can go pre 37. So as for what playoffs are concerned, there might be two games moving from 37 to 36, but in the sort of grand scheme of things, when we talk about players and teams with good schedules and stuff like that, then that won't matter much. The only thing that could upset this is if game week 34 blanks move into that spot post game week 36, but based on all the research, it's highly unlikely, and likely they will go into game week 33, which means that that will be a decent sized double.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's great to kind of look forward to 36, 37, 38. But one thing I also like to remind managers is like, don't get too carried away planning that far into the future, because what happens if you don't even end up qualifying for the playoffs and you've done all this work and you still need to get through 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, right? You still need to win as many of those games as possible as well.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's one of the points, like in general points I wanted to highlight is that obviously you don't want to jeopardize the actual chance to get into the playoffs. So the prerequisite for you to muck about with your team is that you're guaranteed to get to the playoffs. And my sort of my opinion is that you should try to lock up qualification as soon as you can, and then start playing around with your team rather than game theorying later game weeks that you should win. Like you know that you're gonna play like last place team in game week 34 or something like that, or you look ahead and check out the doubles and blanks and you give yourself a win in game week 33 and stuff like that. And but a lot can change uh up to then, and you need to get the wins in under your belt quickly, and then start planning. So all of the upcoming conversation is based on you already qualifying for playoffs and you already needing or having the chance to look further ahead than just the upcoming game weeks. The other sort of general idea I wanted to highlight, and I wanted to draw your listeners or our listeners to an article that was published on the Draft Society website in 2020. So in our first year of existence, 5 years ago now. Oh my God. Okay,
Ta-
maybe I've played Fantrax for longer than 5, 6 years. Then maybe it was maybe it's 8, 9 now, but doesn't matter. So it's
as much as young as you look, you're not that young, you know.
yeah,
So
I know. Yeah, so one of our fellow founding members, whose handle is the Inner Geek. I don't know if you've come across
Luke,
Luke's writing in your early days, Sanji, but he's so if you surf on our website and look at old articles, I still think he is maybe the best writer we have ever had. Like
okay,
as in both as an analyst and also
mm,
writing style. So
yeah,
I know you know that I'm partial to Ryan's style. So I want to say
yeah, yeah,
that's a close second, but it was so Luke's articles are always very informative and very fun to read. And one of his articles in 2020 was an analysis on teams that are quote unquote on the
you're
beach,
right, yeah, yeah,
and he went into details analyzing fixtures and results for the previous years on how teams performed that were supposed to be on the beach, and and I implore everyone to actually read through the articles because it's not dated as in like it mentions teams that are not in the Premier League right now, but the trends are the same right now as they were 5 years ago. And essentially, the gist of it is that although there is some correlation saying that the results for on the beach teams are more haphazard,
mm,
there's no actual data-based correlation saying that teams that are on the beach are less likely to win their respective games.
okay,
So I think that's something that we very easily fall into as a
yeah,
trap
yeah,
when looking at end of season schedules, and it's just like it's fun to fall into traps
yeah.
sometimes, but it's just this is just like uh, something to keep at the back of your mind, just to say that a rope that you can grab onto when you
Yeah,
fall so deep into like trying to overanalyze Spurs and Palace and Man United, those teams that are not threatened by relegation but have literally no chance of getting Europe or getting decent decent positions in the league. So yeah, it's just something to consider all the while doing your analysis.
yeah, yeah. that's fair. So, what would I guess what is your personal strategy for like let's look at the next 3 game weeks at least, right? Because that kind of encompasses the first confirmed double that we have, which include Crystal Palace's double of Man City and Newcastle, both away fixtures, and then Newcastle has 2 home fixtures, Manchester United and Crystal Palace at home. Are you like one that is, trying to trade in as many of these assets as possible because they're 2 popular teams? I feel like it's very hard to find free agents from either one of these teams, maybe a centre back or two. Or are you possibly looking at the fixtures that are being overlooked by other managers? Like, for example, in Game Week 32, Chelsea are at home versus Ipswich, or Brighton are at home versus Leicester. And sometimes we've seen in the past, single game week assets can outscore your double game week assets.
Yeah, so this is an argument I've had with DraftLad for a few seasons running now. That obviously him basing a lot of his analysis on data-driven approaches would suggest that even the fixtures that are looking worse would demand your attention because it's just more likely that something will happen in 180 minutes than your usual 90 minutes, which obviously I'm not gonna argue with the data because it's not worth it and it's probably wrong. But but yeah, based on actual last 8 years of actually trying to navigate doubles and singles, yeah, I would probably base so just to look at the example that you mentioned, uh, a good-looking Brighton defender might be more attractive to me than a random Palace defensive midfielder who will get 3 points in both games or something like that. So yeah, um, I'm more I'm more inclined to look at to look at single game week fixtures that are looking better than more difficult double game week fixtures.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm just thinking like, would you rather go a Jefferson Lerma, or would you rather go for,
Lose Dunk.
let's say, yeah, or an Stupinan? I was trying to make it a bit more enticing.
I mean, I doubt that you can get a Supinan, but I think Lerma and Dunk is a decent comparison because you might be given the chance to put forward waiver bids next
Yeah,
Thursday, looking
yeah,
looking at the double in the upcoming game week. Um, and you will have the choice of Dunk and Lerma. Both should be free agents or should be on the waiver wire. And yeah, I would probably go Lewis Dunk in that. Obviously, I would go Purvis,
yeah.
but
Wait, and how far in advance are you trying to make these moves for double game week 32 though?
I've I've already picked up a few Palace defenders, most likely to use as trade bait. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I can get them out after the Southampton game. But yeah, I've already made moves and I've already started looking at that game week 32 double. Mostly, I think because there was a corresponding blank last game week. So if you had a matchup that allowed you to stash players like I did, so I picked up I think Richards and Mitchell once they were dropped because of the blank. So I picked them up during the game week when I knew that I was already gonna win my game week. So I had no inclination to stash some rando from the Man United game or something like that. I much rather stash some. some double game week assets. So yeah, I think now and obviously waivers have run in some leagues and will run on Monday in some other leagues. So now may be the time to start looking at those doubles. Obviously, as is usually the case, bigger teams with a better chance of winning will have less opportunity for pickups, and smaller teams with worse chance of winning in the double will have better opportunities. But I think I think a lot of managers will be scared by that City Newcastle double, and the Newcastle game is a bit of
Mm.
a gamble, but I would be very surprised if City put up a cricket score against Palace. So I think with
Yeah.
these new rules that we don't get the -2 for the first goal conceded, I would definitely consider starting at least one Palace defender.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw like in my IGL, like for example, Pope was grabbed as a free agent because like you mentioned, the blank that just happened, sorry. Like managers were scrambling to field a starting 11 and stuff like that, right? And I agree, like even though Crystal Palace's both fixtures in double game week 32 are away, I think we should remind listeners of their away form, right? If you look at the last 8 away games of all teams, they sit top of that table, having won 6, drawn 2, scored 14, and only conceded 3. Like they're on a run of like a few away games without conceding a goal, and in fact, like even the game against Fulham, they kept another clean sheet on the road again. So on paper, yes, it seems scary, but I agree with you. Even with the scoring change as well, yeah, I think it's definitely a playable fixture. Like I wouldn't be afraid to play, let's say, a Richards, a Munoz, and a Henderson, like a triple defensive stack in that game week.
Yeah, I think the only uh like obviously Henderson and Munoz are pretty much fixture proof. The
Mm,
only reason I'm a bit apprehensive is if you're playing two s- streaming defenders. Like I would be a bit afraid to play Mitchell and Richards or Richards
mm,
and Lacroix or something like that. But then again, we've seen Newcastle be very expressive and score a lot, but also blank upcoming
yeah,
game weeks. And also City look a shell of themselves.
yeah.
Like even today, I I don't think like Bournemouth fell away a bit in the
Mm,
second half, but there was a very real chance that they would get eliminated
yeah,
to Bournemouth.
yeah, yeah. That's crazy.
And there's no underlying stuff that you can hang your hat on. There's no like these guys are doing everything right. It's just a final pass. There's no underlying good things that are happening that would make us believe that this run in will be City's saving grace or something like that for the season. It's just they're just looking very bad.
Yeah, yeah. Damn, that's wild, man. The fall from grace. Before we move on from this double game week 32, I had one more thinking as well. Uh, how how do you feel about possibly also grabbing assets like a Chilwell or something like that that are kind of on the outside? They're not really getting a chance right now, but we've seen the season injuries are like happening way more than we've seen in the past, I want to say, and in unexpected ways as well. How early would you be taking that possible gamble of, hey, okay, let's say Mitchell, rolls his ankle in training or something like that, then I'm gonna get Chilwell? Or is this like as soon as I get the news, then I'm gonna make the move?
Yeah, I doubt so I can't see a roster construction that can support holding on to a non-playing Palace asset, or even a non-playing Newcastle asset for that matter,
Mm.
for for 2 or 3 game weeks, or two in this case. Um, so like obviously I would consider Chilwell if if either I get the news that Mitchell is out, or maybe on the day he gets the nod and he starts the first game, or even someone like Mateus Branca or something like that.
Yeah.
Out of yeah, obviously all of these would be very much out of left field. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not expecting any of them, but there's a potential that that Palace have the double in 32 and then a double in 33 as well, which means that they would have
Yeah.
4 games in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
which would probably result in a few sort of off-color assets getting the nod, but I would expect that to be in the later games or in the second double, um, which I probably so if it's a difficult situation with Palace if we're talking specifically with Palace, because if in fact the double double is confirmed,
Yeah.
then I'm less. I think I probably in league that does trades and is active. You could probably flip these double double defenders for more value than what they actually possess if
Yeah.
they started, because I I can't see all of them starting 4 games in 2 weeks.
Mm.
Even if they have already not rotated a lot, but it would be 4 games in 2 weeks, followed by the FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so yeah, if the double double is confirmed, then I'm definitely trying to flog all of my Palace randos. Um, I don't know, but it depends on your league if you're
Yeah.
successful. Some leagues even have we're getting closer to trade deadline time as well, so you need to
Mm.
check your buy lows for your leagues, because it's this time around game week 30, 32, 35. It's these game weeks that some leagues have a trade deadline. So check that out if you have them in your league. But yeah, I think I think I would try to trade those assets out.
Yeah, because you'd assume they're gonna prioritize their first 11 for the 26th of April, which is the semi-final versus Aston Villa, and like you mentioned, in terms of that congested period, you've got Man City on the 12th, Newcastle on the 16th, Bournemouth on the 19th, and then TBD, but it should fall in that midweek against Arsenal. But yeah, and maybe they rotate in that game against Arsenal, right? So it's gonna be. I think that second double is going to be way more unpredictable in terms of your playing assets. So, like, if you had to wait up until the last second to make a trade out for them, because sure, the back to back doubles are looking very tasty, but you don't want to end up with like 5 solid Crystal Palace players and then land in 34 where they blank along with the likes of Man City, Aston Villa, and Arsenal. Well, this is what is like, yeah, you don't want to end up in
Wait,
that scenario, right? Where half your team is
exactly.
missing.
And also, I think this is around the time when we usually talk about how you trade at the end of the season, and I think that's a very
Mm,
very important caveat to any trade that you consider at the end of the season. So obviously now we are in game week 30, so even with 10-team leagues, you are into the final round of fixtures. So you will have 2 teams that you've already played and you'll never play again. And also
yeah,
you will have a decent amount of fixtures, fantasy fixtures that you can look through and plan your trades at. So I think this is I want to call it advanced trading strategies and something like that. But when you're considering a trade, either trading players in or trading players out, primarily, obviously, you're gonna. be getting players either way. But when you're considering a trade this late in the season, I always look at the schedules, the fantasy matchup schedules, I mean.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so I look at
Yeah.
my trade partner and if I'm playing them, so like you're considering trading away a Palace defender in our case right now. And let's say
Mm.
you're getting bad offers or not value offers that you would be considering, but you know yourself that you would be apprehensive playing two Palace defenders. So what I would do, and
Mm.
I think it's something to consider, is I would check out who my Game Week 34 opponent is, and maybe I'm okay accepting a lower value deal for them with them because I
Mm.
know that the player I'm trading them will not play against me in Game Week 34. So essentially,
Yeah.
I'm weakening
Yeah.
my Game Week 34 opponent, and I'm strengthening myself against them in 4 weeks' time. And I'm willing to consider a lower value proposition in this case. So there's always special cases coming this late in the season because you have to consider you would be more open to trading with teams that you're not going to face, or with teams
Yeah.
you'd be more open to accepting lower value trades with teams that will play like if we're sticking with these Crystal Palace defender ideas, but obviously it works with anyone else. Um,
Yeah.
you if you check out your main opponent in the league, who they're playing, and try to get them a double game week asset that they can then play, that would help you in that matchup as well. So, so yeah, there's a lot of considerations. I usually dust off my trade planning spreadsheets this time of year when I have the chance, and then I input all the fantasy fixtures and input all the players that I'm considering for trades, and it usually comes up in some decent value deals.
Very nice. Very nice. Is this sheet available for those subscribed to the Draft Society or your personal blog, maybe, Toddy?
um, anyone interested, I'll send them my own address and some some gifts will be appreciated, and then I'll no, I mean this sheet is always um comes out of nothing every season. It's just so league specific and so fixture specific that there's no set um sort of macros in the sheet.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
sheet that has players in it and then fantasy fixtures and I usually look at I start by looking at my main opponent's schedules and check out who I can trade to fuck
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, so general idea is just look ahead who you're facing and basically strategize your trades around that. So another thing I kind of wanted to look at now, we're talking about, possibly foregoing some of the doubles. So like if we're transitioning from like 33 to 34, out of the teams that are like most likely to have the double game week in 33, out of like Crystal Palace, Man City, Aston Villa, Arsenal, those four teams have the blanks in 34. Which of those teams would you like most likely forego? So like for example, maybe I want to trade out some popular Arsenal assets. They have a tasty looking double with Ipswich away at home to Crystal Palace. Maybe do you think there's a potential of trading them out to maybe get in an asset from a team that has an okay game week 33 fixture, but they don't blank in 34? So like for example, the fixtures in 34 that I'm looking at that scream out right now, Wolves versus Leicester, Southampton versus Fulham, Newcastle versus Ipswich. I'm basically looking at the promoted teams because there's been such a massive gap in terms of the talent of the promoted players and teams this season versus I want to say a lot like previous seasons. I know it sounds really simple, really stupid, or you just target the promoted teams, but yeah, that's what it is, right? So out of like the teams that are doubling in 33, blanking in 34, do you think there are any assets in there that you could maybe trade to get the teams that are playing the promoted teams in 34? Like your Wolves, your Fulhams, your Newcastles?
Yeah, I mean I'm sure that there are some that you can target, but I so the later in the season we are, the less shelf life players have on your team.
Yeah,
So essentially, I think when we were doing ranks, I felt that, and also when our TDS mates were doing the draft for the Community League, Super League, they felt that the same as well, that player values are much more um, fluid and they are much more short term. So while yes, there are assets that you can target, your Bellegardes or your Munetsis, yeah,
Strand
maybe something like
Larson.
that. But in active leagues, and obviously I'd rather talk about leagues that have active waiver wires and active trades because obviously when if someone is listening to us and saying that all these players are on roster since game week one, yeah, there are leagues that don't do trades, don't fluctuate their teams a lot, and it makes the game less fun, I think. But when we talk,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
usually talk about 10 team or 12 team leagues with active waiver wires and active trades. So in these teams, all the players that you would consider as trade targets are dangerously close to being waiver fodder. So
yeah, yeah,
finding a value proposition for someone like a Bellegarde, I think it's good. It's a good player to check out who historically has been very bad. Not a good ghoster. Doesn't get
yeah.
many attacking assets. Um, but in the last few games, he's been decent. But
Mm,
personally would still consider dropping him if I didn't want to play him and needed the space. So with these players who are hovering over the waiver wire territory, it's even more difficult to find the value because the the managers who have these players on their teams will overvalue these players because they will have experienced the good times, so to say, with them. So they would the reason
yeah,
they're not dropping
yeah.
them, even though common sense would dictate that they should drop them, inflates their value,
Mm,
which means that that's the reason why there are difficult. It's difficult to do trades this close to the end of the season because there's no consensus value.
yeah. So I was gonna say it feels then like in because it's possibly so difficult to trade, then we might just need to make the tough decisions and make difficult drops to kind
Yeah,
of not
exactly.
corner ourselves, basically.
Either make difficult drops or make very short term or very short sighted trades.
Yeah,
So like if you want Bellegarde, then and you're looking at this run of 33 and 34, and you have your team structure, meaning that he can fit into one of your higher end midfield spots, then you might need to give up an injured Wood and say that it is a huge value lost,
Mm.
but in the short term, you're getting the player that you need for your team
Yeah.
structures. And who cares about the long term when you have 5 or 6 games to go? So
Yeah.
it's some
Yeah.
like I was considering, or I wasn't just considering, I offered, and I think it's a good example of this. I offered Phil Foden for Mateta and Richards,
I like that. That's bold.
which is the same, so the same proposition. Like normally in a even mid season, but early in the season, you would be
Yeah.
laughed out of the room for
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
such a proposition. But now, like you know what City are about now. You've seen Foden play. Yes, he has a chance to go 30, 35, and then 40 points in the next 3 games, but you're willing to try your luck based on form and fixture rather than historical value.
Yeah. Yeah. So almost like you look at the chunk of like, let's say, game week 30 to 34, or game week 30, 31, 32, 33, those 4 game weeks. Like, you trading in those Crystal Palace players, you're getting 6 games in 4 game weeks, right?
Yeah,
Versus Foden, sure, they're playing I think, what is it, 5 games in 4 game weeks. But the thing is, you throw in Pep Roulette into that, so that's more like 3.5 in 4 game weeks, sort of thing. So
yeah,
it looks like a possibly even better trade in that sense, right?
exactly. Exactly. And this is where, so I think, so I think these are the two kind of trades that happen usually this close to the end of the season. Either huge name players get devalued and
Mm,
move around. So players that you would consider like top 25, top 50,
yeah.
or players that are very close to like waiver fodder. Because
Yeah.
all those players in between rank 40 and rank 100 are all over the place for valuation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the top players you can still get value for based on name value and based on perceived value, so to say. And all the
Yeah.
rest you can argue churn, really. You can argue that
Yeah.
your Mitchells, your Bellegardes, your whatever, you're just gonna drop them in 2 or 3 game weeks anyway. So why complicate things
Yeah.
with a convoluted trade where we can do like a quick trade in uh, considering low level assets. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's always about being active. It's always about getting the information. Like all the stuff that we talk about today. Obviously, most of your league mates in IGL, most of your league mates in the community league will be aware of. But
Mm.
and I know you know Sanji, but most of our listeners wouldn't know what kind of trade emails, what kind of
Yeah.
DMs we get, uh, considering the amount of useful info we put out. We have been putting out for 5 plus
Yeah.
years. It still shocked
Yeah.
me after 5 years of contributing weekly to the draft society that there are still leagues where you would be able to, I don't know, this time you would be able to pick up Mateta
Yeah.
this week
Yeah.
because he was dropped when he was kicked in the head or something
Yeah.
like that. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, and like I've had people DM me like, "Hey, can you maybe talk about slightly higher owned percentages, not just under 40% for like waiver pods and stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean I can, but you're probably the only person that this will apply to, this unique scenario, like you mentioned to, right? Like being able to make these ridiculous free agency grabs, like."
Yeah, but I mean, we are here for all,
Yeah, yeah,
and I always so I have a few DM returners every season who What was the
It was the guy that
word?
questioned the nationalities.
Yeah, there was one. There was one. No, no, no. What was the word that I posted the other day? Asshole.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, yeah. There are few, and it's
Yeah,
a recurring theme because like you and I, we read the short term articles, so the waivers and the sleepers this season,
yeah,
and every week or every second week we get or I get a DM or a message on Discord or whatever asking whether they should pick up one of the players that I mentioned in the waiver article, and I was like, yeah, 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 check them out. Look at the past few weeks; they've been doing well, whatever. And then they show me the team, and it's like Real Madrid on crack or something like that. It's like they have seven first rounders in the team, and I was like,
yeah,
are you in a two-team league? No, no, this is like an eight-team league with friends, and like I'm the only one who listens to the pod or whatever. And it's like, don't pick up the players that I mentioned. They're just I wrote about the players because I wrote mainly so that even managers in 12-team leagues who are in active leagues have something to read or something to consider. But obviously, it doesn't apply to you who has like seven first rounders. You just played your
yeah,
seven first rounders and you win every game. So
yeah,
yeah, it's difficult to make content for such a wide variety of leagues and managers. And I think I didn't plan this, or nor did you, but that's where the toolkit comes in, right?
yeah,
That's where
yeah,
the toolkit comes in because with the toolkit you can actually tailor make the advice to your own league.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you will see the high end punts that we usually mention in the sleepers and the waivers, but you will see them as compared to what's available in your specific league. So
yeah,
you won't consider a player who's projected like 8.5 if you have 15 players who are projected 15 points ahead of him.
mm,
Whereas us
yeah,
who play in hyper competitive 12-team leagues would need to punt on players who are not projected to start and are projected to score like 6 points, but you have an inkling feeling that they will do
yeah,
all right despite the half decent projections. So it's like it's that's why I always encourage everyone to get their league mates to join up on Draft Society and join up on Discord and consume fantasy podcasts and whatever because the better informed your league mates are the more fun your league is. It's not gonna be fun to
yeah,
win like 25 games and win your league by April or whatever. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, more competitive environments make you a better Fantrax manager for the long term, and better prepared when you join the amazing community leagues that we have running at the moment. So I guess before we kind of sign off, I'm gonna ask one more thing, and then kind of maybe give you the opportunity to raise anything else that we've not touched on yet. So in terms of like difficult drops or trade outs, because I'm looking at the game week 33 to 34 run where specifically it's the teams that doubled and blank. Like how do I put this? How risky are you willing to go in terms of a trade out or a drop of, like, let's say a popular Crystal Palace asset? Like in my opinion, like is everyone on the table? Like, are you willing to forego Eze, Mateta? Like, I know you talks about bringing them in for that back-to-back doubles, but let's say you want to do the opposite thing and you don't want to end up with, a team of a bunch of blankers in 34. Like, are you willing to drop Mateta if push comes to shove in game week 34?
I mean, depends on what happens up until then, obviously, but and the fact that they might
Yeah.
might get to the FA Cup final definitely is a consideration. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what you can do, and you don't have to do a spreadsheet. You can actually do this in your Fantrax app. Is you go to your team selection and then you choose which game week to look at. So you from the
Mm.
drop down, you select Game Week 34, and then you mock up what your team might look like. So I usually
Yeah.
do
Good
that.
show.
So I
Yeah.
usually go 2 or 3 game weeks ahead and actually move my players around for that future game week to just get a feel for
Yeah.
where I'm short as in defense, midfield, or forward, where I have um, rotation concerns, where I have players on bad matchups or players on very good matchups. So you would see. So if you're considering, and Mateta is a good example. If you're considering Mateta, and you need a player for gaming 34, then just mock up your 35, 36, 37, 38, and if you're not playing him in more than 2 game weeks, then yeah, why not drop?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm thinking like other assets from like the cities and stuff like that. Like, are you willing to maybe drop a? I'm thinking of a popular like Bernardo Silva. Like, I know a lot of teams still roster him, even though he doesn't score well. He's very in and out the team. That seems like an easy drop to me.
I mean, I would
Um,
drop Bernardo Silva before the double, but yeah,
okay, let me make it a bit more challenging. A Doku. What are you gonna do with a Doku? Because he doesn't always start every game.
yeah, Doku is a difficult one, and when considering game week 34 drops, then you wouldn't know whether they are in the final yet because that's the
Yeah,
weekend when they are actually playing
yeah,
and and they have decent schedule coming up. So I probably wouldn't drop Doku, but yeah, I mean other than Haaland, Doku, Savinho, Foden, Guardiola and Marmoush, I would probably drop any other player.
yeah. And like Crystal Palace for me, I think it would be like Eze Munoz, and then outside of that, I would maybe consider dropping trading out if push comes to shove.
I mean, you could probably get some value for Sar or Mateta,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
I don't mind that.
yeah,
I don't mind that one bit, but yeah, when considering game week, like considering blank drops or players dropped on a blank, you always have to check out your opponent as well. Like
yeah,
like
yeah,
like you
yeah,
maybe based on your own team, you feel that you need to move on some of these decent value players to be able to field an 11. But when you check out your opponent, they have Haaland, they have Eze, and they have Munoz, and you're in business
yeah.
with 7 players.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, like last game week, the blank game week, I lost to a roster of 6 players.
exactly,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah,
there's always the matchup considerations, especially this close to the end of the season.
yeah. And also, if the matchup, like, let's say they have 15 players all eligible, and you've got like only 7 to 8, do you maybe also sometimes just accept that okay, it might be a potential write-off, a potential loss, and let me not like undo all the good work that I've done all season and then have zero team going into the playoffs. Like, can I digest this one loss
Exactly.
maybe?
And so even in non-playoff leagues, you can if you're play if you have a team that has a ton of blankers and a ton of high end blankers, like you have Isak and Haaland and someone else decent,
Yeah.
and you would need to sort of blood sacrifice some of your top assets to be able to field an 11, and that 11 would be your Janelt and your other sort of middling defensive midfielders that you could pick up, um, and you have you have a chance either at playoffs or at a final win at the end of the season, even with this loss. Then obviously it gives you the freedom to actually vulture these Matetas and the likes who other teams drop, and that's what I did in Game Week 29. Obviously, it's better if you are able to vulture because you've already won, rather than you're able to vulture because
Yeah.
you are giving yourself the game off with a loss, but vulture none the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Great. I think that's pretty much all that I had planned to talk about or whatever came to mind. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we sign off, mate?
I mean, we haven't talked about the actual playoff
Oh yeah, we
yet.
should probably do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. True, true, true.
Okay, so I did a little research. Um, so I wanted to talk about a bit. So we talked about the general advice, um, and we talked about the blanks and doubles, and potential blanks and potential doubles. So before I move on to a few players to consider,
Mm,
I wanted to talk a bit about where we might be at in Game Week 36 as with teams. So as for the title race, um, unless Arsenal make up 3 points um, in the upcoming 5 games
mm,
to Liverpool, then by the time playoffs come around, Liverpool will be champions.
yeah.
So even if both teams win all of their games, Liverpool have a chance to clinch the title at Chelsea, which is
Right.
game week 35, and they will need only 1 point against Chelsea to get the title, even if neither team drops points.
Wait, this is the Gimmick 35 fixture.
Yes.
Oh, so in 35, Liverpool actually play. Oh, they do play Chelsea. Why am I seeing something else different then? What am I looking at? Okay, I was looking at the wrong table. Yeah, fair enough. I was just trying to like not accept it as a possible reality. Sorry, I was trying really hard.
And this is considering so up until then, Liverpool have Everton, Fulham, West Ham, Leicester, and Spurs.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Arsenal would need to make up points facing Fulham, Everton, Brentford, Ipswich, and Palace in that
yeah.
run. So
Mm,
both seem doable to win out, but I think Arsenal's with Brentford and Palace is a bit more difficult. So even they might even get a chance to win forehand. So that's something to consider when you're looking at 36, 37, and 38. As for relegation, Wolves are 9 points ahead of Leicester and Ipswich right now. And Wolves
mm,
play Ipswich and Leicester, and they only play City and Brighton from the top 10 in
yeah,
all of their upcoming fixtures, whereas Ipswich will play Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Bournemouth in the upcoming
yeah,
schedule, and Leicester will play Liverpool, City, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Brighton, and Forest.
yeah,
So I would like if there is a betting agency that still take bets on Leicester and Ipswich going down, I would place decent chunk of money on them going down.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I like how you've not even given any grace to Southampton. You've not even bothered
I have,
to bring them into
honestly,
the
I haven't. I
cup.
mean, when I was doing my research, and I was reading all the articles on relegation and all the odds, I saw, I think it was last game week when when Juric was asked whether Southampton have a chance of staying up, and he said absolutely not. I mean, I would concur.
I mean, I appreciate the honesty. Like,
Yeah, exactly what you're expecting. So and as for Europe, it's still up in the air,
yeah,
as you as a Chelsea fan will know. Chelsea are fourth with 49 points, and Bournemouth are 10th with 44.
yeah,
And in the middle there, Newcastle have a game in hand.
mm,
So it's anyone's guess on who will be top five or who will go to Europa League, whatever. Um, there's a slight gap after Bournemouth. Brentford are three points behind them. So even Brentford could in theory make a run for the Conference League. But yeah, I would not venture into consideration on who will reach which spot out of those six teams. So as for players, I made three groups of players: pick up and hold, trade in, and trade out. So these are the
okay,
three groups of players. Pick up and hold, and this is all considering that you've already locked up qualification to the playoffs, so you have nothing to play for in the next 5 games.
yeah,
So pick up and hold, I would consider, and these are players that have a chance to be on the waiver wire even in active leagues. I would
yeah,
consider Leif Davis. Ipswich
mm,
have Brentford, Leicester, and West Ham in the final
yeah,
three. And on the same note, Philogene, obviously three decent fixtures. And as for a midfielder, I would consider Norgard, who I would probably consider picking up and playing even before that, but he's criminally under rostered. And Brentford play Ipswich, Fulham, and Wolves in the final three.
yeah, yeah,
So as for trade in, I will give you a defender, a midfielder, and a forward. Everton have Fulham, Southampton, and Newcastle, so I would consider trying a cheeky bit for James Tarkowski,
yes,
whose upcoming fixtures are horrendous, absolutely god awful.
yeah,
Everton's upcoming fixtures are, and you would probably be saving some sorry manager who is considering playing or not playing Tarkowski every week for the upcoming 4 game weeks,
yeah,
and you would be able to get him on the cheap
mm,
if you are looking at playoffs. And Fulham are on the downward spiral. Southampton, obviously Southampton, and Newcastle in the final game week. As for midfielders, and this is even surprised myself with this, is KDB.
oh wow,
City,
is this like
City
a
have
last hurrah sort of thing? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That was my consideration. So Southampton, Bournemouth, and Fulham, the final three fixtures. So very, very good.
yeah,
Obviously, they have the blank in 34,
mm,
potentially some fixture congestion in game week 36 and 37 as well. So there might be some way to move him in, and he's been bad
yeah,
lately. So his final swan song
mm,
of KDB should be a good gamble, I think. And
yeah,
you wouldn't have to part with a lot, I think, to get KDB. And the last one to trade in is Chris Wood, who is currently injured and unavailable, so will be available quite cheap. And they have Leicester, West Ham, and Chelsea
yeah,
in the final three. So very good for forwards.
mm,
And the last group of players is to trade out. First one, the defender is a cop out. It's Jan Bednarek,
yeah,
who who you might have just picked back up after him being dropped, but they face City, Everton, and Arsenal in the final three, which will be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Even if Everton and Arsenal will have nothing to play for, they will still play with Southampton. The midfielder, I would suggest to trade out if you're considering playoff aspirations is my boy Dominic Szoboszlai,
Hey.
who are playing Liverpool are playing Arsenal, Brighton, and Palace in the final three. Arsenal, possibly Brighton, very likely have something to play for in that fixture. And as we said a few minutes ago, there is a very, very big chance that by the time that Liverpool Arsenal game comes around, Liverpool are already champions.
Yeah.
And the final one is one Pedro Neto, who is flying relatively high right about now.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
Newcastle, United, and Forest in the final three, which is not a good schedule for a forward. Surprisingly, United isn't um, an easy schedule for forwards based on the
Mm.
data. And also, Nico is back, so
Yep.
we
Yep.
are we are looking at Nacho going back to either right wing or left wing or wherever Maresca um, thinks he will thrive, which he will probably not. So I would try to capitalize on the decent run of form that he has had to trade him out right now if you're considering
Yeah.
playoff things. And also these trade in trade outs could even be um, paired up. So like Neto for Wood or Soboslai for a
Mm.
KDB is doable, I think. This far ahead of the playoff schedule. Obviously, these are not high-end assets, so you wouldn't be parting with much. But I think you would, if you did these switches, you would be in a much better state for your playoff push.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of injured players are coming back as well. That's possibly going to change the dynamics for some teams. You know, we're seeing the likes of McNeil coming back. Maybe that kind of affects Harrison's points moving forward. So you possibly trade out, even more reason to trade out Harrison right now, given, you know, the tough fixture run that you kind of alluded to: Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Man City, Chelsea, and then kind of focus on to the playoff fixtures later on. And all of the trade in, trade outs, and fixtures that you kind of mentioned, this is also assuming that we have a very simple 36, 37, 38, right? There's always the possible carnage of the 37 fixtures moving into 36. We're having a double in 36, a blank in 37, and then normal fixtures in 38, right? So this could potentially slightly change once, you know, we see the semifinals of the FA Cup kind of playout and stuff like that. But I think it's still a really, really good guide of how you want to be shaping your thinking and your strategy for the rest of the season. One question also came to mind. You know, we talked about KDB's swan song. How much weight do you put on the final two game weeks of the season where teams actually have their final home game of the season? Because those tend to be a bit of a, like a party
Yeah,
vibe,
I
right?
mean there is a reason we run the final day perfect 11 on the final day, and it's always a carnage. There
Yeah.
is always a surprise,
Yeah.
and there's always a few surprises. A surprise start, a surprise goal scorer, whatever. I would like so if you're looking at like game 38, 37, somewhat, but 38 especially, even if it's
Yeah.
away. You're like the likes of Adam Lallana, the likes of Danny Welbeck, the likes of uh, Trent stepping up for a penalty, or the likes of KDB, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The narratives, the swan songs, the farewells. There are managers who are more inclined to give in to these, and there are managers
Mm.
who will
Yeah.
just for the authority sense won't give in to these, but it's always fun. It's always fun to consider these, and it's
Yeah.
usually these very surprising assets that wouldn't even need to pick up beforehand. Just pay attention when lineups come out. But yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah.
It's always so much fun to look at Gaming 38,
Yeah.
and we'll be promoting our final day perfect 11 as we get closer to that. But that's a fun structure, a fun way to make your last game week count, even if you're out of um, playoffs, even if you are not playing for a league title, just to have some fun.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, Toddy. Anything else?
No, I think I've said my piece. I've talked too much. But still not too much in Banter Boys
Yeah. Yeah.
consideration.
This is like a first half of a pod. What are you talking about? We're gonna
Yeah,
go take our
exactly.
halftime pint, go get a beer, come back for the
Yeah,
questions.
exactly,
but
exactly.
but it was a pleasure having you on the pod. Opening back up the season after what felt like an eon of a break. But yeah, really happy to kind of jump back in into the final stretch of the season. I'm shocked as to how long it took us to get you on the pod, and I hope this isn't your last appearance as well, because I definitely don't think it will be. But before we sign off, any final words of advice?
Just have fun.
Hey, Ross's piece of advice. Love it. All you Liverpool fans, man. It's the same sort of characters. All you guys are good. Yeah, okay, love it. Yeah, have fun. Enjoy the football while it lasts is what I say, because once summer hits, that's when the sadness really begins for like 2.5 months, right? Up until we start churning on that pre-season content. But yeah, again, thanks to everyone that's supported us. And if you have any questions, you know where to find Toddy on Twitter or in the Draft Society or the Draft PL Discord. If you have questions for us, join our Discord as well. But yeah, Toddy, you've got an article coming out with respect to playoffs as well, I think. Have you?
Yeah. I will try to publish it before the next game week starts. It's mainly all the stuff that we talked about today.
Yeah, so keep a lookout for that as well. But yeah, until next time, guys, peace.